Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Form SSA-1724, which is whenever there's an underpayment on the record due to death. Before we get into the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on your bell notifications so you're always notified whenever I'm posting new content. If you enjoyed the video or you got something out of it, please make sure to give it a like. And if you have any questions, leave a comment down below and I'll address it as soon as I can. Alrighty, so this video is just to kind of clarify, because some people may be confused. This is whenever somebody is still owed their last payment versus the lump sum death payment, which is a one-time payment of $255, where in most cases a claim will be taken by the Social Security Administration for that benefit. This is something separate than that. So this would be in the case of, as an example, let's say that first and foremost, in order to be eligible for a Social Security payment, you have to be alive for the entire month. So if you were to pass away at 11:59 on the last day of the month, you would not be due a payment in the following month, and therefore you wouldn't have to file for this particular issue. So essentially you have to live from the first to the first to be eligible for a payment. So let's say that you passed away on, sometime in the middle of the day on the first day of the month, and you normally get paid, let's say, you might get paid on the 3rd of the month, the 2nd Wednesday, the 3rd Wednesday, or the 4th Wednesday of the month. But let's say that you passed away before that payment was able to be deposited, and let's say the funeral home was able to update kind of your family member's death information kind of quickly. For those that don't know, when somebody passes away, the way that the Social Security Administration is typically notified is not through, a lot of people assume that it's through the state and the death certificate, but it's actually done through the funeral home. It's a more localized entity, and they're very familiar with communicating electronically or through fax or mail with the local Social Security office. So that's typically how the Social Security Administration is made aware that somebody has passed away. The funeral home has some forms that they'll fill out and they'll send over to the Social Security office, at which point there'll be a technician that updates that person's record with that information of their passing. At which point their benefits will be terminated, their Medicare will be terminated, and there'll be, I believe, an identifying marker on the Social Security number itself with the person's death information. So let's say it was a situation where somebody lived till the 1st, and then maybe on the 1st or the 2nd or something like that, they passed away. And this is usually ends up being the case of how this kind of transpires. Is the person passes away before they get paid, and then Social Security's information gets updated with their death, at which point the direct deposit will not happen. Okay, then you'll have to you'll probably get a letter from the payment center, which is a part of Social Security. They'll send you a letter basically saying, "We're sorry to learn of your loss. It does appear that this person was still due a payment. Please complete the enclosed form with the appropriate information so that we know kind of what's what and who to pay." Whenever SSA 1724 is being completed, and we'll pull up the form here in a second, there is a priority list of people that have to be paid. Okay, so number 1 on the list is going to be a surviving spouse, and it says right here, the surviving spouse who was either living in the same household as the deceased at the time of death, or who, for the month of death, was entitled to a monthly benefit on the same record. So this would be like if you were receiving spouse benefits on this person's record, then you're supposed to be paid this underpayment. So if, let's say that you're, again, it says who was either living in the same household or who was eligible for benefits on the record as a spouse. Right? So again, if you're receiving an active spouse benefit off that person's record and you're separated, then you could still be paid, realistically. All right. So let's say that there wasn't this person. Let's say that maybe they were a widow or a widower, and there was no surviving spouse. Who's next on the list? Children who, for the month of death, were entitled to a benefit on the same record as the deceased. Let's say that this would be in the case of a child that's under the age of 18 and maybe mom or dad was on disability benefits, right? Realistically, they would be a younger person. Mom or dad passes away, and now there's no surviving spouse. Maybe they were they were divorced or something like that. Now the child is going to be the priority person to pay in that case. The minor child would take precedence on this list of who should be paid first. Number 3, extremely rare situation here. Parents who, for the month of death, were entitled to a monthly benefit on the same record as the deceased. Okay. So, for those that don't know, there is actually a benefit for dependent parents to be paid. I am not overly familiar with this type of benefit. It does exist. It is real. But I will tell you, in the nearly 8 years that I worked for the Social Security Administration, I worked with a ton of seasoned people. Probably the most seasoned employee that I ever worked with had been with the agency for about 50 years, 50. And anybody that I've ever worked with, I have never once heard of a dependent parent claim being taken. That's not to say that they're not out there. I'm sure that they are. But this is an extremely rare benefit. And I don't even know the circumstances fully of how this benefit gets paid, so I won't even go into it. But again, that benefit does exist. So if it was a parent receiving benefits off the record at the time of death, and there was no surviving spouse or no minor child eligible for a benefit on the record at the time of death, then the dependent parent could be eligible to receive the underpayment. Going into number 4, a surviving spouse not qualified under number 1. So I'm going to say, going back to what I discussed earlier, if let's say you're a surviving spouse and you're separated, not living together at the time of death, and not eligible as a spouse in the month of death. So this would be, let's say, you're married and your spouse's record is high enough to where they receive benefits under their own record and you receive benefits or were under your own record, and those two records are not connected for monetary purposes, then again, it would revert back to your surviving spouse. So it could be whether you're married and living together, or maybe married and separated. Again, it's going to revert back to number 4 at that point, if 1, 2, and 3 are not eligible to be paid. Number 5, children not qualified under number 2 or above. So this would be the case of, let's say that you're an adult and your mom or your dad passes away, they're still due a check, there's no surviving spouse, there's no minor children that can be paid, maybe you have a younger sibling, there's no parents that are eligible to be paid under the record, again, there's no surviving spouse at all whatsoever, then at that point, you and or any other adult siblings will be paid under the record or will be paid that underpayment. And to clarify kind of the breakdown of this, let's say typically it's one Social Security check. So let's say the average check I think is somewhere around $1,600. Let's say it's just you're the only adult child of your parents or your whoever it was that passed away. Again, the no 1, 2, 3, or 4 option available to be paid. And it's just you, and their check was $1,630. Then you would receive that payment. Let's say you had a sibling who was also an adult, meaning over the age of 18. Then that $1,630 is going to be divided between the two of you, and you'll each get $815, and so on and so forth. So the more siblings you have that kind of meet this number 5 category, the more it's going to be divided up. Very similar circumstance with number 6, parents not qualified. So it's basically saying, in essence, it's whoever's eligible at the time of death to receive benefits under that record is going to be paid first. And if it's a situation where nobody's eligible, then it kind of breaks down into this other category, which is realistically the same group of people. Parents not qualified. So this would be if you weren't a dependent parent, you were just mom and dad, and maybe your son or your daughter passed away. and whether they were on disability or maybe you're elderly and they were on retirement benefits, and they were due a payment. And again, there's no surviving spouse, there's no minor children, there's no adult children, then you would be the person to file for this benefit. Or it's not really a benefit, it's an underpayment. And then last on the list is a legal representative of the deceased person's estate. This person is going to have court paperwork saying that they are the executor of the estate and they are applying for benefits on the estate's behalf, and so on and so forth. At that point, that's who the payment would go to. Again, assuming that 1 through 6 does not exist. Let's jump into the form here. Again, this is the Social Security website. The form is right here. So we'll take a gander at what it looks like. Print the name of the deceased. That's pretty obvious who you're going to put there. Social Security number of the deceased. Again, pretty obvious. If you don't know the Social Security number, you could probably put their date of birth. And then the Social Security Administration will do a search on the person's information and more than likely find the number. If the deceased received benefits on another person's record, print. This is typically a case where, let's say the person, you are a surviving child of your mom, and your mom was drawing widow benefits off of your dad, who passed away, maybe a couple years before. Then the name of the worker at that point would be, you would put whoever passed away first, and whoever was the mom was receiving benefits off of. All right. This claim for amounts due is being made on the behalf of the family or the estate of name of the deceased who died on the day, the month, the year. All right. So let's say it was January 1st, 2023. You would put 1/1/2023, who lived in the state of whatever state. Name of the applicant. So that's you. So you would be filling this out. You are the applicant. So whether you're if you're a minor child, then it could be different. Realistically, at that point, you're going to be the custodian of whoever that minor child is, but you're still going to be the applicant, the person applying for the underpayment. And then, or if you're, again, that adult child over 18, you're still the applicant. Relation to deceased, again, pretty self-explanatory. You're going to be one of those 7 different categories. The following are the next of kin or legal representative of the deceased named above. All right, so let's say, again, it was you and a sibling. You're going to make sure that you put both of, it says right here, number, kind of jumping down a little bit on question 2, how many people are basically in this category that we're kind of jumping into here. So how many either parents or children, whatever the case may be. I think it says, if none of the above, put none. So this would be an instance, I believe, if you're, let's say, the surviving spouse, your husband, let's say your husband just passed away, they were owed a payment, you would put none here because you're not really going to get into any of this. You're just a surviving spouse. All right. So again, name of surviving widower. So there may be none. Again, it says very specifically, if there's no surviving spouse, put none. Then that's when it will jump into the children or the grandchildren, or well, not really grandchildren, but I guess in certain situations, maybe if you're what this is referring to is you can be a grandchild receiving benefits off your grandparents' record, but there are very fine details involved in that. And it would revert back to, I want to say it was category 2 here. If you are a minor child eligible for benefits under this person's record at the month of death, then that would be you, right? And then to be more specific, it could be a grandchild or maybe a stepchild. Also, there's, again, with stepchildren, that is a possibility, but there's very fine details that have to be met in order for those circumstances to exist. But that is a possibility for anybody who didn't know. And then again, so it goes from, again, surviving spouse in the same priority that list had. So surviving spouse, kind of any children that were eligible under this record. If there's no children, then we're going to living parents, and then legal representatives would be the last person to, number 5 would be category 7. Question 5 would be the last person that could be eligible. If none of those exist, let's say that you're a neighbor or a cousin or something like that, maybe you're a divorced spouse, you would not qualify for this underpayment, and essentially it would just stay with the Social Security Trust Fund. If you fall under one of those 7 categories and you're eligible to be paid and you're filling out this form, make sure that you put your bank information in here, okay? I always say double check your bank information. So if you're just typing it in real quick, right, you want to make sure. I always go number for number, right, and read it out loud so that you don't miss that direct deposit, because that would just end up being another headache. You would have to fill out this form again. They'll probably send you a notice or something saying, we weren't able to pay you, or the payment was rejected. So you sign it, you date it, telephone number, mailing address. You want to make sure that all this is good to go. If you're in the process of moving, I would probably just go ahead and wait until your move is complete. Your address is updated with the post office so that you get any notifications that you're supposed to get, and then go from there. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on your bell notifications so you're always notified whenever I post new content. If you got something out of the video, make sure to give it a like, as it helps out the channel a great deal. And if you had any questions about anything I covered, make sure to leave a comment down below, and I will reply as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.